Early in the afternoon on July 21st, we made it to Paris, the city of light. Paris is the capital and most populous city of France. It is situated on the River Seine in the north of the country. Its metropolitan area is one of the largest population centers in Europe, with more than 12 million inhabitants. Paris was the focal point for many important political events throughout its history, including the French Revolution. Today it is one of the world's leading business and cultural centers. We stayed at the Marriott Left Bank, conveniently located by the Latin Quarter. Our hotel room offered views of some of the principal landmark domes of the skyline of Paris. The Pantheon, originally built as a church dedicated to Saint Genevieve, but after many changes now functions as a secular mausoleum containing the remains of distinguished French citizens. With a facade modeled on the Pantheon in Rome, surmounted by a dome, the Pantheon looks out over all of Paris. The Church of the Val de Grace is the church of a former royal abbey in what is now the Val de Grace Hospital. The dome of the church is a principal landmark of the skyline of Paris. The Glory of the Blessed fresco of the cupola by Pierre Mignard. The metro station nearby the hotel where we took the train to the Champs-Élysées, where the 2013 Tour de France, one of the cycling's grand tours, was to conclude. At the metro, I was able to capture a picture of some of the members of the Cannondale team. The Spectators. And the Caravan. We managed to find a small opening where we could see some of the action of the Tour de France's grand finale, across the way from the Museum of Contemporary Art next to the Place de la Concorde. This monumental fountain is one of two completed in 1840 during the reign of King Louis Philippe, and commemorates navigation and commerce on the rivers of France. The Luxor obelisk is a 23-meter-high Egyptian obelisk standing at the center of the Place de la Concorde. It was originally located at the entrance to Luxor Temple in Egypt. It is decorated with hieroglyphics exalting the reign of King Ramses II. Given the technical limitations of the day, transporting it was no easy feat. On the pedestal are drawn diagrams explaining the complex machinery used for the transportation. The Sphinx towing the barge Luxor, ferrying the Luxor obelisk to France. More about the Tour de France activities. The Sky Team fans celebrating, and so is Rosita. The winning team. 22 teams entered the race, which was won by Britain's Chris Froome of Team Sky. Second and third, respectively, were the Colombian Nairo Quintana and Spanish rider Joaquin Rodriguez. The Place de la Concorde is one of the major public squares in Paris, measuring 21.3 acres in area. It is the largest square in the French capital. The square was designed in 1755 as a moat-skirted octagon. During the French Revolution, the government erected the guillotine in the square, and it was here that King Louis XVI was executed in 1793. The guillotine was most active during the last part of the Reign of Terror, in the summer of 1794, when in a single month more than 1,300 people were executed. A year later, the guillotine was removed from the square. In view, the Luxor obelisk. The Palais Bourbon, seat of the French National Assembly, and the chapel of the National Residence of the Invalids. The Madeleine Church was designed in its present form as a temple to the glory of Napoleon's army. To its south lies the Place de la Concorde. To the east is the Place Vendôme, and to the west, L'Église Saint-Augustin. The Madeleine is built in the neoclassical style, and its 52 Corinthian columns, each 20 meters high, are carried around the entire building. The pediment sculpture of the Last Judgment is by Lemaire, and the church's bronze doors bear reliefs representing the Ten Commandments. Its size is 354 feet long and 141 feet wide. Inside, the church has a single nave with 3 domes over a wide arched base. At the rear of the church, above the high altar, stands a statue by Charles Marocchetti depicting Saint Mary Magdalene being lifted up by angels. The half-dome above the altar is frescoed by Jules Claude Ziegler, entitled The History of Christianity, showing the key figures in the Christian religion with a sign of its Second Empire date, Napoleon occupying center stage. Side altars to Christ the Savior and to the Virgin Mary. The baptismal font and the statue Baptism of Christ, both by François Rude. The funeral of Frédéric Chopin at the Church of the Madeleine in Paris was delayed almost 2 weeks. Chopin had requested that Mozart's Requiem be sung. The Requiem had major parts for female voices, but the Church of the Madeleine had never permitted female singers in its choir. The church finally relented on condition that the female singers remain behind a black velvet curtain. 3,000 people were in attendance.